the confirmation hearings directly from the NRA with our own Rachel Parsons right there in Fairfax, Virginia. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Hey there, doing well. It's busy over here in D.C. this week.
Yeah, I'll bet it is. Probably hard to get a hotel room.
Thank goodness I live close. It has been a crazy week and very interesting as far as gun owners are concerned and the Second Amendment.
So give us a little update. What's going on from your side?
Sure. Well, I think everyone is well aware that the confirmation hearings for Judge Sotomayor is going on right now in the Senate Judiciary Committee. And yesterday and today, several senators had the opportunity to question Judge Sotomayor on her on her rulings that would involve the Second Amendment. Needless to say, her answers regarding the Second Amendment have been evasive at best.
Yeah.
And I know, James, that you've been watching very closely as well. And one of our main concerns is a ruling that she did in the case of Maloney. Now, this is a case of Maloney versus, let me get the correct, versus Cuomo. And this would suggest, in her ruling, she said that the Second Amendment is not incorporated and does not apply to the states. That the Heller ruling only addressed the federal government's ability to restrict the Second Amendment freedoms, but the states were not did not have to respect our Second Amendment freedoms. That they were not incorporated by due process of the 14th Amendment. It all gets very, very complicated and very convoluted, especially if you're not a lawyer or an expert in Second Amendment law. But this is very troubling for gun owners, for the NRA. And last week, Executive Director of the Institute of Legislative Action, Chris Cox, sent a letter to Senators Leahy and Senator Sessions to make sure that they knew that we had a lot of questions for Sotomayor and we needed some clarification and some clear answers about her position on the Second Amendment. She's been evasive. She has been skirting through the issue of whether or not the Second Amendment is a fundamental right. This is disturbing. It is disturbing that she is clear that the First Amendment and our freedom of speech is a fundamental right, and the right to not have illegal search and seizure in your home is a right that should be enjoyed by all Americans. But she's very evasive on telling us what she feels about the Second Amendment and if that is an individual right and a fundamental right pre-existing our Constitution. This is troubling, and this should be very troubling for folks who, gun owners all across this country.
Right. Okay. I have two questions.
Yes.
One of them is, according to that case that you were just referred to, does that mean for those of us out here that are not attorneys and may not be right up to date as you are, does that mean that the state would have the right to deny Second Amendment rights?
Yes.
Any state?
Yes. The state, either whether it be city governments, state governments, could indeed ban firearms should they so choose. That would, so then what this is saying is that the Heller decision only affects folks in Washington, D.C. that are ruled by federal government. The federal government couldn't take away your firearms, but your state governments could. That's what this is saying. But Judge Sotomayor, says that the reason she ruled this way because of previous precedents. But the previous precedents, and this gets way convoluted with cases back in the 1800s, but in modern law, the precedents for incorporation is through the due process clause. And so it's very interesting what's going on down there and her answers to these very important questions. She is not giving us direct answers about how she would rule, and it's very important because this judge, should she move forward and be a justice on the Supreme Court, could potentially hear the NRA's appeal on this very issue of incorporation and whether or not the Second Amendment is incorporated through the 14th Amendment of the Due Process Clause. So everyone, this is going to affect all gun owners.
Right.
If the Supreme Court takes up this case, that would determine whether or not states have the right to restrict our Second Amendment freedoms. She could very easily have a vote on this particular case, and it's very important for us to know what her position is prior to getting in.
Right.
We do not want a hostile Supreme Court justice, someone who's hostile to the Second Amendment. We do not want to be governed by that.
Right. And the other question on here, which actually I think we should pay some attention to, is the fact that they're stating here that, oh, but she has a relative that's an NRA member. She said so, and she has friends that are hunters. Now, this is a personal thing, but I'll let you address that, Rachel. How do you think that should have anything to do with anything?
Well, it has no bearing on anything. The facts are that she has not been clear about whether or not she believes that the Second Amendment is a fundamental right. It is listed clearly in our in the Bill of Rights, which are all individual rights offered to all law-abiding Americans, and so that's very concerning. You know, again, she is very clear to say that the First Amendment is a fundamental right for all Americans, and the Fourth Amendment is a fundamental right to all Americans, but is choosing not to address whether or not the Second Amendment is a fundamental right, and she's using court precedents as an excuse.
Right, and I think those personal remarks were set off by another person who is friendly to her argument, number one. But number two, she has said also that her decision process on the Supreme Court has nothing to do with her personal opinions, that in fact her judgment as a Supreme Court member is based upon law. So all I want to point out here to some of these people is that if you heard that, as I did, it shouldn't soften your view towards this appointment. Now, you know, the fact of the matter is we may not have a choice in this, that the appointment may well be preordained, Rachel. I don't know that we're going to have a choice here. However, I don't think people should go to sleep on the fact that she is not going to be, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, but she's not going to be pro-Second Amendment in most cases.
Well, now we also need to remember that the Heller decision was a 5-4 decision. That is very telling.
Yes.
And, you know, when we were moving forward and we had, you know, if Judge Sotomayor is confirmed, we need to keep that in mind. We also need to keep in mind that President Obama may have more appointments coming in the future. And so, you know, our Second Amendment freedoms are at risk. There is a reason to be concerned, especially when during these hearings we're not getting the answers that we want to hear. And in fact, we're not even, you know, the Supreme Court said the Second Amendment is an individual right, but we're not even really getting that from Sotomayor. So this is very interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. We can still contact our senators and let them know how we think they should vote, and I would encourage everyone to do that. Contact your senator. Tell them how you think they should vote on this confirmation.
Right.
It's very important.
As a matter of fact, that is a question we have. Is there anything that a citizen can do to influence this vote? And I think you just answered that question.
Yes, you must let your senators know exactly how you feel, and, you know, make sure to call their offices and let their staff know. This is going to be an important next couple of days, and you know, just like Lindsey Graham said on the first day of testimony, unless she has a breakdown, she may just get confirmed. But we also think it's very important that all of these Second Amendment issues have been brought up. She has been questioned by numerous senators on the Judiciary Committee on both sides of the aisle about her Second Amendment stance. And that's very telling, and that's exciting news for the NRA and for gun owners. But we can't just sit by and let this happen. We do need to call and make our opinions known. Now, you know, we are still very concerned. There's still about a day and a half left of questioning, so we were still interested in hearing what she has to say. But thus far, very evasive, not very clear on her stance.